Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Adapted Life with Julie Hasselberger. Today is episode 12, and I'm talking today a little bit about something that has happened recently here, and that is a food shortage of a special needs formula that Daniel needs to take via his G tube. So, this has left me feeling very, very vulnerable, and it's something that I just wanted to talk about because I've been writing about it and thinking about it and stressing about it, and it really does affect so many people. And so, to get started, I just want to explain a little bit more about what this is. So, my son Daniel Hasselberger, who is 24 years old, he is medically fragile and disabled. He is fed exclusively via G tube, which stands for gastrostomy tube. He has a high risk for aspiration pneumonia, and due to all of his global developmental delays and the lack of motor skills needed to eat safely and protect his airway, he eats only via G tube, never by mouth. So when he was younger, just so you can understand, probably till around age 7, he was eating by mouth somewhat. The motor skills that need to be there to eat normally, to move the food around, as well as the motor skills to speak and make words, they never developed correctly in Daniel due to the impact of the condition on his brain. So, after some considerable, swallow studies and tests, a decision was made to stop feeding Daniel orally. It was just too dangerous. So it had never been a good experience for him ever since he switched over to eating foods. It was always pureed foods. He had low tone. He would cough a lot, cry a lot. It was really hard for him to swallow safely. We used to try everything, but yeah, like I said, we switched to G tube feedings exclusively, and that actually helped improve his respiratory situation and his overall strength and ability to get more nutrients. So, in addition to being fed by G tube, we also discovered over time that he had some absorption issues and allergic reactions to certain elements of the foods in the formulas. So, he had a very clear reaction to a milk protein when they did an endoscopy during this whole testing process. And so, they put him on a hyperallergenic food. And a lot of babies go on this too. Like if they have issues with digestion, they put them on special formulas that are somewhat partially like digested, like processed proteins. And upfront, I'm not an expert with all this. This is just my experience as a caregiver, taking care of my son, but it also has affected so many people. So I wanted to talk about it. And so they switched him not only to a hypoallergenic nutritional formula, Enteral. It's called an Enteral, Enteral. Just basically means it goes through the gastrostomy tube, which we call G tube, or some of us even call Mickey button, which is the name of the actual button thing that you put the food through. Anyway, he was also switched to a continuous slow feed. And the reason we did this was he wasn't absorbing nutrients very well when we were doing like more formula all at once, like what they call bolus feed. So the doctor switched him to a continuous, they think it's like 22 hours a day. He gets a continuous rolling feed of 90 milliliters per minute. I mean, per hour. Minute. My God. So that actually helped a lot to improve his absorption of nutrients. And we found out that this was happening when he was getting ready to have his spinal fusion surgery. And probably about 6 months prior, had a bone break. One of his femurs accidentally had a break during time he was spending getting into a piece of standing equipment. It was an accident, but it shouldn't have broken that easily. So we found out that his bones were very, very demineralized, and it opened our eyes to what was going on with his absorption of phosphorus and calcium. And then we found out that the formula wasn't doing a very good job, and They gave him mega supplements and then eventually changed him to a better formula, and that was called Elecare, Elecare Junior. And he was on Elecare Junior up until the end of February of this year. So for years we never thought about it, right? We had his medical foods. We just, call the doctor, get the prescription, and either CVS or our Enteral supplier would just order it. It would get shipped or we would pick it up. It was always available, no problem. But in February of this past year, we were told that Elecare Junior was being recalled. And apparently they had some kind of a problem with bacteria in the formula, and the company Abbott, it was Abbott Technologies, they had a huge recall. And I don't know, I don't really understand how it all works with the recall thing, but all I know is that a lot of baby formula and a lot of these specialized formulas like Daniel's were no longer available. Like the pharmacy couldn't get it, the suppliers couldn't get it. If you were lucky, you could find it somewhere on Amazon for $1 zillion, but you know, one can, right? So it really became completely gone. Like, what a crisis, right? So we didn't know what to do. We called the doctor. We went on all the way. I was having this panic because I had nothing to feed Daniel. So they called me and they said, "Look, we're going to phone in a prescription for the one that he was on before, and that's the one when he was having absorption problems. But overall, it was still a good formula. So it was called Neocate Junior, and they put him back on that for a couple of weeks, with the thought being eventually we'll get the other stuff back and we'll be back on track. So we were on the Neocate Junior for most of March. And so when it came time for me to renew again, I was like, Elecare still is completely not available. And then Neocate was not available. And so I started to find out that not only was Neocate not available, but neither were any other simultaneous similar formulas with the same kind of a hypoallergenic component to them. There was like supply chain crisis going on in this country. So manufacturers were just out of stock, because everybody was looking at the same time, trying to find these formulas and baby formulas. And it was just, it became a panic. So right at the beginning of April was when this was all happening. So I was looking at, in like 2 or 3 days, I would had no food for Daniel. And they suggested one type of a Pediasure product, and the doctor was like, "Oh, he should be fine. He hasn't had any milk protein since he was, really young. He probably grew out of it, blah, blah, blah." Well, we tried that. It was like Pediasure peptide something, something, I don't know. And within 30 minutes, his whole face blew up. He had hives on his neck. He had earlobes were swollen. And we had to give him Benadryl, which freaked me out because Benadryl is not good for him in terms of the seizures. It somehow crosses over it affects the seizure threshold. So it was like, pick your poison. It was like an anaphylactic reaction. So we took him off of it. We put him on just Pedialyte and gave him Benadryl. And within a few hours, the allergic response was going away. So he kind of reversed out of it. And I was like, what am I going to do? I didn't know what to do. So I started researching other types of foods, and I spoke to our, it's called Option Health or Option Care Health. And they provide us with all of our supplies, like bags and tubes and all the things we need, and the pump and the stuff. So they also provide the food. And they made some suggestions. Well, this is what other people who are used to getting Elecare are now getting, like something called Kate Farms, which is basically a whole different type of food, but it's a enteral based nutrition. It's completely vegan. It's made with a base of pea protein and a lot of really, really organic, healthy things in there. So it's a different kind of company and a different kind of food. So I said, you know what? It's not proven to be hypoallergenic, but let's try it because it doesn't have any of the other things in it. And so we tried it, and now he's been taking that since the past couple weeks, and very different. It looks different, smells different, but he seems to be tolerating it. I just don't know if we're supposed to be on this or we're supposed to switch back. It's kind of a wonky situation. Anyways, going through this has made me feel so incredibly vulnerable. Like, I mean, somebody like my son doesn't eat by mouth, can't feed himself. He relies on something manufactured by somebody else um, for everything, for all of his nutritional needs. So not being able to get it was really pretty alarming, and uh, yeah, I had a pretty big anxiety meltdown. So, anyways, he seems to be tolerating this Kate Farms product, which is like a nutritional shake made with pea proteins. And if you read the ingredients, and I went to the Kate Farms website, and several people on my support group had said, "Oh yes, my son or daughter is using Kate Farms, and they're doing well with it." So it felt pretty good to be choosing something that was actually made from like real food, instead of like all these chemically produced. I don't even know what's in these formulas anymore. It's like it's all big words and amino acids, blah, 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 all that stuff. It's like I don't even really know, but he's tolerating it, and you know. So the food shortage of formula, and both for babies and for adults, I think it's really left a connective like scare in people's lives. Caring for special needs people is incredibly challenging. And when a reliable and tested source of nutrition that you've been using safely just disappears overnight, an entire world of people need it. And and then it was like mass absorption of every similar type of product out there, and then there was none left. And it was a crisis. It is a crisis. I believe today is April 22nd, where it's still a problem. I've reached out to a couple places to find out if any of these things are now available, but it doesn't look like it. So the vegan formula seems to be okay for now. The doctor wrote an order for it. Insurance company covered it. We had to get the see we when we do something, we need an order from the doctor. We need a prescription from the doctor. We need a prescription for the supplier. We need a um, I mean, for the nursing company, and in order for that, if we have to give extra water, we need an order and a prescription for that. There's a lot of like calls and documents that are needed to be put in place every time you make one little change. So um, I don't know, man. I'm just never again going to be complacent in my assumption that, oh, he's eating this, it's always going to be there, right? And you just have to stay on top of it. And it's just insane. Like, I just relied on the source being always available, and then all of a sudden it was gone. So I was supposed to go away on April 8th. That was when everything was crashing down the day before he had had the allergic reaction. And I was just under so much stress because we didn't have enough food for Daniel. We didn't know what we were going to do. So I had to cancel my trip to see my daughter in California, which was very, very upsetting for me because I don't get breaks. So I know why I couldn't go because obviously I had to resolve this problem. And still, I had to unpack, undo all of the arrangements. And I don't know. It was still upsetting, even though I understood what I had to deal with. But just another example of how on a dime something can change and alter all of your plans. It's very hard to make plans when you're a special needs parent. It's especially when it's a medically fragile person. When you are caring for someone who at any minute can just kind of fall backwards or have some kind of an emergency, it's very unpredictable, and so your life is unpredictable too. And it's not easy to live completely unpredictably. You got to learn how to roll with it. You got to learn how to just take a deep breath. And I let myself cry for a while because I was sad I wasn't going to California, but then I just got the travel credit and called the hotel and said, please, please give me a refund. And um Yeah. So now I'm documenting and monitoring his vital signs, his skin integrity, his weight, how he's moving around, the energy level, moving of bowels, all of the physical things to make sure that he seems to be metabolically doing well. Um, and this is just one aspect of caregiving inside my world is just the whole nutrition component, right? Um, I mean, it's a big deal because this is what is sustaining him and giving him nourishment. It's my responsibility to make sure he is having proper nutrition, and when that responsibility becomes muddled and muddied or whatever, what did I write? Muddied by a literal shortage. Um, man, it's hard not to just be overwhelmed with anxiety. It's like, God, what do we do, right? And anyway, I had to I had to cancel all those arrangements, and it sucked. It really sucked. So I sat in his chair that night. It was a Thursday night. I realized that the next morning I wasn't going to be able to leave on my trip. I felt frustrated, numb, and sad. I needed a break. Couldn't leave, and I just I just couldn't. So I just had to deal with it. I had to adapt to that as well. That disappointment of just not having that very, very highly anticipated little break from things and to be able to see my daughter, who I miss terribly. So I had to reset my brain, which is what we have to do. We have to say, okay, 10-second funeral here, reset your brain, work on this problem. This is more important than your little break out to California. And so that's what I did. Daniel needs me. He needs me always. He needs me when I'm not physically in the room with him. He needs me to be his warrior. He needs me when there's emergencies and when there's not. And it just is just the reality. And I accept that reality lovingly, but I'm also only human. I am not a superhuman, transformer, super bomb, Eventually, I'm gonna get out to see my daughter in California. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to be next week, for the first week of May. But I know that I need to get out of the house and have these mental breaks. It's just very critical. And spending time away is always really good for my soul, and it gives me a chance to sort of refresh and think and just kind of be in a different element. John knows this as well. He knows, and he's very supportive, and he has to pick up slack at home. He does work from home now, and that in itself helps us to kind of manage things way more than if he were always working somewhere out of the house all the time. But he is also traveling more too, so our schedules are a little bit tighter in terms of like when to do things, in terms of who's going to be home when. But each element in itself is a challenge, right? Every element of caregiving for someone like my son is in itself life giving. I'm his life giver. I'm not just his caregiver, I'm his life giver every single day, every waking moment. And how amazing is that? Like, he is just so incredibly special. Um, and I've been given this beautiful responsibility to be the tender, the one to tend to him, the one to care for him. Um, like, wow, I mean, I'm not ever angry about it. I'm just, like I said, human. Sometimes I need to be me so I can slip away and enhance our life, right? But I am also the life giver, right? I gave life to him, and I continue to do that because he can't do it for himself. So yeah, it's just cuckoo. I worry about his health, and if this is the best solution, whatever it is that we're doing, but I have to keep him monitored and keep evaluating. Like right now, he's gained a little bit of weight, which we're not sure why, because it's, the same calories in this formula, and everything is measured and monitored. It's not like he's eating anything that's bad for him. So why? Like, why metabolically has he suddenly gained, you know, 8 pounds since October? Like, why? And and those whys, we asked to the doctors, but I'm in between stomach doctors for him right now, the GI doctor. I've got an appointment in September, which was the soonest they could see him, for a new patient, for a like an adult motility doctor, they call it. So we've been dealing with pediatrics. We're stuck in the middle right now. It's just bad timing for this all to happen right now, because I don't really have a reliable place to bring him to get checked and tested and stuff. And although the pediatric GI doctors, the group at Yale, they've been terrific. Um, Imagine them. Imagine what they're dealing with, these physicians and suppliers. So we're constantly learning new ways to take care of things, and we just sort of bend and twist and adapt and try to to manage when something happens that's out of our control. And even if he had no food, we could have given him liquids, right, in the meantime. But yeah, it was kind of scary. I mean, I had nightmares. So we're constantly learning how to surf the waves of hypervigilance without falling into such great anxiety that it affects our health and our mental state, right? Finding solutions, or sometimes you're finding a solution to a solution which was rendered no longer your solution. So it's complicated because he's complicated, right? It's not an easy just, give him a three-course meal kind of thing. It's very different. So we have a challenge, we learn, we grow, we move forward. In my case, I had to cancel a lovely week with my daughter to devote my energy to his nutritional crisis. And my lovely daughter said, "Look, Mom, I don't need you. He needs you. I love you. I want to see you, but he needs you." And she understands. It's what we do. It's how we are. We center ourselves around Daniel's care. Even we, being, my kids are, they're grown-ups now, they're adults, and Thomas is off in Boston, at college, and Sarah's living in California now, but we've still centered our energy around him and making sure he's okay. So we allow ourselves to be disappointed. We're only human and frustrated, but we remain open to just, we might close that door or that window, but then another one opens up. So then we look in a different direction, and then we make other plans. But there's always hope, and there's always love, and there's always, like, don't worry, you know what I mean? Like, with a positive attitude, things seem to work out more than if you just freak out and have crisis and get depressed. And yeah, it's a process, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this today. It was a very intense period of time. I still think it is. I don't know where it's going. I have another month's supply of Kate Farms. Let's hope that they maintain their supply. And then we have to just monitor his symptoms and his vital signs and make sure he seems to be okay. So I have learned not to take food for granted. To have it disappear overnight is really scary. I'm working up now, I'm working on backup plans. So I have other supplies of things so that I don't get lost in the dark again like that. I mean, I left in the dark because not having anything was just not acceptable. I mean, it's like, what are we going to feed him? And if we feed him this, what is it going to do, right? Is it going to be okay? Um, so we want Daniel to continue to have a healthy and safe life, to have good nutrition so that he can, enjoy his life. And it means making sure that whatever we're putting through his G tube is the right thing for him. So I I just want to stress that, the world of caregiving has so many interwoven complexities. When you're a life giver, there's just thousands of different things that you have to manage, and sometimes they go wrong, and sometimes there's nothing you could do about it, um, except, just like I said, adapt to finding solutions to the solutions that are no longer solutions. And I don't give up. I must have made 100 phone calls to see if originally if I could find the second formula, because I knew the Elecare was still not it wasn't on the market. It was still messed up with the recall. But when I couldn't find the replacements, I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? You know? Anyways, I think I did a good job. I found an alternative that is a good source of nutrition for him. And as we can see right now, he seems to be doing okay. But we have to keep watching, monitoring, taking his weight, taking his vitals, we have to give him extra water because he seems to be needing more water. But the nurses are terrific. I have a nursing care here that they do such a great job, taking care of everything, and they monitor him, and they document for me, because I'm not good at documenting Daniel's details when it's just me, because I'm on mom duty, house duty. I can't. It's like too much. Um, so that is the food shortage crisis for the special needs people in our country. Well, it wasn't actually our country. It was all over, because I have friends in Australia who have disabled kids in my group, and they also couldn't find hypoallergenic formulas, and still can't. So I don't know. Maybe you saw about it in the papers. It was in the news a little bit. It didn't get that great of exposure, but there were articles and stuff about how people were having problems finding formulas. And I still notice there's like no baby formula on the shelves, because, yeah, Abbott Technologies also makes like all the Similac products, things like that people rely on. And I think these manufacturers are trying, but they've got supply chain issues getting stuff in. So it's just complicated, right? The whole thing's complicated. Anyway, my son is eating, and he's having something that is doing well for him, and it's been doing well for many other special needs families that I know who have the same condition as Daniel. So that was a little bit of a good thing to hear. Wow, I haven't heard of anyone who's had any adverse reaction. So we'll take it from there. And I want to thank you for listening to my little journey about Daniel's nutrition and feeding and foods, and what it's like on this inside world of we've always taken for granted that we had his food available. Barely have to talk about it, right? And then all of a sudden it was gone. So woo, we got through it, and we're still getting through it. And you know what? I'm going to go on a little break, and I'm going to have a lovely time and come back. That's my plan. Could it change in like a day? Yeah, could change. Could change tomorrow. Um, but this is what I have to do. I have to learn how to change and be okay, and change and be okay. And my main responsibility is Daniel. So yeah, it's a lot. And maybe I am a transformer super robot mom. I fix the world. Yes. Oh, I love doing this. I love you guys. I'm so glad to be here. I enjoy podcasting very much. And I'm going to be back again and share some more stories with you. And I hope you like the channel. I'm growing and learning and changing every day. I hope that some of you are tuning into our YouTube channel. That's where I post videos um, about our life. I've been doing that for a long time. It's like a daily video journal. We share lots of stories on the inside world about what's happening here. And I also post videos of the podcast there. And I post the podcast in other places. And I have an Instagram and kind of a Facebook. Yeah, I'm out there. And I also have a little art shop, which isn't, just about, it's just me and Daniel's artwork. And we sell the prints, and we sell all kinds of little things like magnets and stickers and ornaments. And we're adding to the store all the time. And we're adding new art prints all the time. And I have this beautiful flamingo-y thing. Um, Pointing to it for the video's sake, but Daniel and I did that one. Like, it's just a little fun thing, and that helps to support like some of our home-based projects. So it's all part of the community of Julie's Adapted Life and Julie Hasselberger and sharing the journey and wanting to be there for you. I offer you encouragement. I hope that you find a smile and some kind of similarity in the insanity of dealing with adversity and how it changes everything and how it can either change you or can morph you into something even better. And that's kind of why I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going because I just have a feeling that there's just some deep purpose in all of this. And I feel it every time I talk, and I feel it every time I start writing things, and I read a lot of my journaling and my notes and my poems and my writings. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I think somebody out there might actually also want to hear this. Have a great day, everyone. I'll be back soon. Thank you for listening to The Adapted Life. And I'm just very, very grateful. Sending love to you all.